Hi, I'm Emily, and this is English in Ease, your cozy corner for learning to speak English with confidence, clarity, and calm. Today, we're talking about a skill that doesn't get enough attention, but makes a huge difference in conversation. Quick thinking. You know that awkward feeling when your brain just freezes? You're in the middle of a conversation, maybe at work, maybe just chatting with a friend, and someone asks you a simple question, something you definitely know the answer to. But suddenly, your thoughts stall. You hesitate. The words are just out of reach. And before you recover, the moment has passed. That's exactly what happened to me the other day. I was talking to a colleague, just small talk after a meeting. They asked me something super basic. "What are you working on this week?" And I had a complete mental blank. I stumbled, muttered something half-formed, and by the time I got my sentence together, they'd already moved on. I kept thinking about it for hours afterward, replaying what I should have said. If that's ever happened to you, especially in English, I want you to know you're not alone. And more importantly, there's a way to fix it. Not fast talking, not rushing your words, but the ability to respond naturally without freezing or overthinking. Quick thinking isn't magic. It's a trainable skill. In this episode, we'll explore why it matters, what slows us down, and how to build the kind of mental reflexes that let you respond smoothly, even when the spotlight's on you. So let's start with why quick thinking matters so much, especially when you're speaking in English, your second or third language. Picture this. You're in a job interview, and the interviewer says, "Tell me about a challenge you've faced." You've got a great story to share. You've lived it. But in that high-pressure moment, your brain freezes. You say, let me think. And suddenly, you don't feel confident anymore. The story's still there, but the words just don't come out. It's not just you. It's extremely common. Studies have shown that in any language, native or not, people often associate quick responses with confidence and intelligence. Think about someone who always seems sharp, always ready with the perfect reply. They feel calm, smart, capable. But the truth is, that ability isn't natural for most of us. It's developed through intentional practice. Here's something important to remember. Thinking fast doesn't mean speaking fast. In fact, many people confuse the two. They think, if I speak quickly, I'll sound more fluent. But fluency is about clarity and flow, not speed. Imagine driving. You don't have to hit top speed to get where you're going. You just need to know the road. When we train quick thinking, what we're really doing is helping the brain find the right words faster, without panic, without pressure. And yes, this takes practice. But once you start, it becomes easier and easier. So what's getting in the way? Why do our minds freeze, especially when we know the answer? Let's break down the common obstacles. 1. Overthinking. Have you ever texted someone and rewritten your message 5 times before sending it? That same habit sneaks into conversations. You want your sentence to be perfect, so you try to construct it in your mind before speaking. But real conversations move quickly. By the time your perfect sentence is ready, the moment's gone. 2. Fear of making mistakes. This is huge, especially for English learners. When I was learning Spanish, I hesitated constantly. I didn't want to sound silly. But that fear slowed me down. It made me less confident, not more. 3. Brain freeze. Sometimes it's not fear or overthinking. It's just your brain going completely blank. Like someone asks, "What's your favorite movie?" And suddenly, you can't name any movie you've ever seen in your life. 4th, language access. If English isn't your first language, the words don't always come quickly. Your brain has to work harder to translate or recall vocabulary, and that extra effort takes time. But here's the good news. Every one of these problems has a solution. Let's dive into the first strategy. Staying calm under pressure. This one is foundational. When you feel nervous, your brain switches into what scientists call fight or flight mode. That stress response makes it harder to think clearly. Your heart races, your breath shortens, and suddenly, you're stuck in a mental fog. I remember giving a presentation in college. I had everything prepared, everything memorized, but when I stood up to speak, my brain just shut off. I couldn't even remember my first sentence. All I heard was the sound of my own heartbeat. So what did I do? I paused. I took one deep breath. Just one. And it was enough to ground me. I reminded myself that I wasn't in danger. I was just talking. Once the panic passed, my mind started working again. This works in everyday conversations too. If someone asks you a question and your mind goes blank, don't rush. Take a breath. Say something simple like, that's a good question. Give yourself space to reset. Now for the second strategy, anticipating common responses. Think of it like preparing your mental toolbox before you need it. Just like chess players think 3 moves ahead, you can do the same in conversations. Let's say you're going to a party. Chances are, someone will ask, "What do you do?" Or, "Where are you from?" You already know those questions are coming. So, have your answers ready. Practice them. Keep them simple and flexible. This isn't about scripting your whole conversation, it's about building mental shortcuts. When you anticipate common questions, your brain doesn't have to work so hard in the moment. Even in daily interactions, this helps. If someone asks, "How was your weekend?" you won't get caught off guard if you've already thought of a few possible answers. And if you're preparing for a job interview, this tip is gold. Think about 5 to 10 questions they might ask. Prepare your responses. Practice them out loud. Repetition builds automatic recall, and automatic recall is the secret to thinking fast. All right, now strategy number 3, using time fillers. These are simple, short phrases that give your brain time to think, without making the silence awkward. Instead of freezing, you fill the gap naturally. Here are some examples. "That's an interesting point. Let me think about that for a second. I haven't thought about it that way." These aren't just polite phrases, they're mental buffers. They buy you a few precious seconds to organize your thoughts. I use this all the time. When someone asks me something unexpected, instead of panicking, I start with, "That's a good question." And while I'm saying that, my brain is working in the background. One tip here, don't overuse fillers. You want them to sound natural, not rehearsed. Think of them like seasoning, just enough to add flavor, not so much that it overwhelms the dish. The next strategy is one of my favorites, paraphrasing. Let's say someone asks, "What do you think about our new marketing plan?" and you don't have a ready answer. Instead of going silent, you say, "Our new marketing plan? I think it has a lot of potential." That tiny rephrasing, "Our new marketing plan," buys you time. It also shows the other person that you're actively listening, and it helps confirm you understood their question. Paraphrasing is especially helpful when a topic is complicated or emotional. It gives you time to choose your words carefully, without the pressure of answering immediately. Let's continue from where we left off, paraphrasing. It's such an underrated tool in conversations. You're not just repeating what someone said, you're buying yourself a few seconds to gather your thoughts, and at the same time, showing that you're really paying attention. That's a double win. So next time someone asks, "Do you agree with the new schedule?" Instead of jumping straight into an answer, you could say, "The new schedule? Yeah, I think there are a few things I'd adjust." Or, I see what they were aiming for, but..." That small echo of their words keeps the conversation flowing and gives you space to respond with more confidence. Now, Let's move on to another powerful technique, thinking in simple sentence structures. One of the biggest things that slows English learners down is trying to form complex sentences in their heads before they speak. I totally get it. When we write or study, we're trained to aim for perfect grammar, long sentences, and advanced vocabulary. But in real conversations, that can actually hold you back. Here's the truth. Clarity beats complexity every time. When you're trying to speak quickly and clearly, think in building blocks. Use sentence starters that give your brain a framework. Things like, I believe that. In my opinion, I'm not sure, but maybe. These aren't just filler phrases. They're scaffolding for your thoughts. They allow you to start speaking before you've mapped out your entire sentence. And that helps reduce silence, hesitation, and mental blocks. Let's take an example. Instead of saying, I suppose that due to the current environmental regulations, we may need to reconsider the efficiency of our resource allocation. Try saying, I think we need to rethink how we use resources because of the new rules. Both sentences say the same thing, but the second one is faster, simpler, and easier to say on the spot. So next time you're in a conversation and your brain wants to go big, bring it back to the basics. Use simple connectors like because, but, so, and, even though. These words help your ideas flow more naturally. And don't be afraid to pause between thoughts. It's okay to speak in short bursts. In fact, native speakers do this all the time. It's not about sounding robotic or overly formal. It's about being clear and keeping the conversation moving. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. Active listening as a quick thinking tool. Most people think quick thinking means talking faster. But in reality, the fastest speakers are also the best listeners. When you really listen, you don't need to invent your response from scratch. You're building on what the other person just said. You're responding to real ideas, not trying to come up with new ones from thin air. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone says, I've been feeling overwhelmed at work lately. You don't need a fancy or perfect sentence. If you're listening closely, a natural reply might be, yeah, I've felt that way too recently. What's been the hardest part for you? That's active listening at work. You hear their emotion, you reflect it, and you ask a question to keep the conversation going. No overthinking, no pressure, just real connection. Another benefit of active listening is that it helps your brain stay in context. You're not just picking up on words, you're understanding tone, emotion, and intent. That context helps you choose better words when it's your turn to speak. So if you want to think faster, listen harder, really focus, drop distractions, be present in the moment. Your brain will thank you. Okay, let's move to something really fun, improvisation practice, or what many people call improv. Now don't worry, I'm not asking you to become a stage performer or start cracking jokes. Improv isn't about being funny, it's about being flexible, about training your brain to respond without scripting every single word. There are a few ways to build this skill, and the best part? You can practice them anytime, anywhere. Exercise 1, Word Association. This is a simple one. Pick a word, any word, and say the first word that pops into your head. Then keep going. Don't stop. For example, apple, juice, juice, breakfast, breakfast, morning, morning, sunlight. The goal is to keep going without stopping or filtering your thoughts. It might feel silly, but it's powerful brain training. You're building the connection between ideas, and that speed helps in real conversations too. Exercise 2, 30-second storytelling. Set a timer. Choose a random word, like mountain or umbrella, and tell a quick story about it. The story doesn't have to be amazing or even real. The point is to keep talking. Don't pause. Don't try to be perfect. Just go. For example, umbrella? Oh, last week it rained so hard and I only had this tiny umbrella that flipped inside out. I was soaked by the time I got home, but a stranger actually offered to share their umbrella with me. That moment really made my day. That's it. You're not judged on grammar or structure. You're simply giving your brain permission to keep the words flowing. And just like any other skill, practice leads to fluency. The more often you do these little exercises, the easier real-life conversations become. Let's bring in another practical tip: build your personal phrasebook. I tell my students this all the time: create your own go-to sentences. These are the expressions you can use in lots of different situations without having to think. Here are some examples. I'm not sure about that, but I'd love to learn more. That's interesting. Can you tell me more? It really depends on the situation. These phrases are flexible, polite, and keep the conversation moving. They also give you a buffer when your brain is still catching up. Over time, your personal phrasebook becomes second nature. You'll find yourself using them without thinking. And that frees up your brain to focus on what matters: connection. Before we move on to our vocabulary section in Part 3, let's review the strategies we've talked about so far. Stay calm under pressure. Take a breath. Don't rush. Anticipate common responses. Prepare your answers in advance. Use time fillers. Give your brain space to think. Paraphrase. Repeat or reword the question to buy time. Think in simple structures. Clear beats complicated. Practice active listening. Good responses come from good listening. Try improvisation exercises. Train your reflexes to respond fast. Build a personal phrasebook. Have some ready-to-go expressions. These aren't tricks. They're tools. And when you use them consistently, they turn into habits. These aren't tricks. They're tools. And when you use them consistently, they turn into habits. We'll finish with a few more practical strategies, and then head into your vocabulary spotlight, where we'll highlight some of the most useful expressions and academic terms from today's episode. Let's pick things up right where we left off. We've covered staying calm, anticipating questions, paraphrasing, building simple sentence structures, and even improvisation. But before we wrap up, there are a few more essential tools for building your quick thinking muscle, especially when speaking English under pressure. One of the most effective and often overlooked strategies is this: slow down your internal judgment. Let me explain. One of the biggest reasons our minds go blank isn't because we don't know the answer. It's because we judge ourselves while we're trying to speak. There's this internal voice saying, "That sentence doesn't sound right. Is that the correct grammar? What if I sound stupid?" And while your brain is busy second-guessing you, it forgets to do the one thing it needs to do: speak. When you're learning a language, especially one as complex and idiomatic as English, you have to give yourself permission to speak imperfectly. This doesn't mean ignoring mistakes. It means not letting mistakes stop you. Think of it like writing a first draft. It doesn't need to be flawless. It just needs to exist. You can polish later. Quick thinkers trust themselves. They trust that the words will come. And if they make a mistake, no big deal. They keep going. That's what fluency looks like in real life. It's not perfect. It's persistent. Let's move to our final strategy. Use memory anchors to speed up vocabulary recall. Have you ever learned a new word but completely forgotten it during a conversation? That's because memorization alone doesn't always stick, especially in live, unscripted conversations. To think quickly, you need fast access to vocabulary, and memory anchors help with that. Let's say you're learning the word overwhelmed. Instead of just memorizing the definition, try anchoring it to a real experience. Like, "I felt overwhelmed during my first week at my new job." Or even better, picture that moment vividly in your mind. The desk piled with tasks, the constant emails, the buzzing phone. Now, when you try to recall overwhelmed, your brain won't search through definitions. It'll jump to that vivid image. That emotional connection helps you recall faster. You can do this with phrasal verbs too. For example, figure out. Don't just learn it as to solve. Think of a story where you had to figure out how to fix something, maybe a broken app or a recipe that went wrong. Anchor the phrase to the story. This method taps into your episodic memory, the part of your brain that remembers events, and it's much faster than rote memorization. When vocabulary lives in your experience, it becomes part of your speaking reflex. All right, now let's shift gears. As promised, we're going to go over some intermediate level vocabulary and expressions that came up in this episode. These are words and phrases that you can start using in your daily conversations to sound more natural and fluent. Emily's Vocabulary Section 1. Mental block: a temporary inability to think clearly or remember something. When she asked about my weekend, I had a total mental block. 2. Time filler. A short phrase that gives you extra time to think before answering. I used a time filler like "let me think" while organizing my response. 3. Anticipate: to expect or prepare for something in advance. I anticipated the question and had my answer ready. 4th. Paraphrase. To reword or restate something using different words. I paraphrased his question to buy a few seconds. 5. Internal judgment: the self-critical thoughts that interfere with speaking or performing. Her internal judgment made her hesitate before answering. 6. Improvisation, improv: spontaneous speech or action without preparation. Practicing improvisation helps you think faster in conversations. 7. Clarity over complexity. An idea that clear communication is more effective than complicated words. He focused on clarity over complexity to make his point. 8. Fluency. The ability to speak smoothly and easily. Fluency isn't perfection, it's comfort and flow in communication. 9. Anchor, memory anchor. A mental connection that helps you remember a word or idea. I anchored the word grateful to a memory of a kind gesture. 10. Active listening: fully concentrating and responding thoughtfully to what someone says. Active listening helps me respond naturally without overthinking. Try using these in your speaking practice this week. You could even write short example sentences or try telling a story using 3 or 4 of them together. Let's close with a reminder I always like to share. Quick thinking is not about being perfect. It's about being ready. It's about learning to trust yourself, respond naturally, and keep the conversation flowing, even if you make mistakes. So if you've ever frozen mid-sentence or felt frustrated by your slow responses, I want you to know it's not a flaw. It's a sign that your brain is still learning to juggle language under pressure. And like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. Keep practicing those micro-strategies. Breathe before you speak. Predict and prepare for common questions. Use time fillers and paraphrasing. Think in clear, simple phrases. Practice storytelling and improvisation. Build vivid memory anchors. Most importantly, be kind to yourself. Confidence doesn't come from knowing every word. It comes from trusting that whatever words you do have, you can use them well. I'll be here each week to walk this journey with you. One story, one strategy, and one step closer to English fluency. Until next time, keep listening, keep speaking, and keep growing. This is Emily from English in Ease. Talk to you soon.